Ever get that feeling, that like, maybe my finances could use a little tune-up, like it's time for a financial oil change.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Well, you are in the right place because today we are taking a deep dive into the 12 signs your financial strategy needs adjusting.
Ooh, interesting.
And we are not just like skimming the surface, we are going deep.
I like it.
We are really going to get into the nitty-gritty of what these signs actually mean for, your bottom line, your financial health.
Well, and what I think is so fascinating about this particular source is that it doesn't just give like generic advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
It digs into these subtle, often overlooked red flags. The things that could be like silently draining your financial health without you even realizing it.
It's like a slow leak, right? You don't notice it at first, but
Yeah,
then suddenly you're in trouble.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. Sign number 1 is a biggie: drowning in debt. I think we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
That feeling when you open your credit card bill and it's just you.
The worst.
Like you're barely making a dent in the balance. You feel like you are just treading water.
Yeah, and it's not just the emotional stress of it, right? Because high interest debt, that can really snowball.
Yeah.
Like you're losing money every month to those interest payments. Money that could be growing your savings or going towards investments.
It's like you're trying to run a race, but you've got like a 50-pound weight strapped to your ankle.
Right, exactly.
So what's something, just like one concrete step someone could take right now to start tackling their debt?
One strategy that I find to be incredibly effective is the debt snowball method. So basically, you list out all of your debts from smallest to largest, and then this is key, regardless of the interest rates. You focus all of your extra money on paying off that smallest debt first.
I love that.
While obviously, making minimum payments on everything else.
So it's like you get that quick win, right?
Yeah.
You knock down that first domino and then it creates momentum.
It's a psychological trick.
Yeah.
It really works. You see that first debt disappear and it's like, okay, let's go.
I love that, the snowball effect. Okay, let's move on to sign number 2, which is all about having a solid emergency fund. And this source, they suggest having 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses saved.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna lie, for a lot of people, that just feels like an impossible amount.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? But here's the thing, even having a small emergency fund,
Yeah.
even a small amount, it can make a huge difference. Imagine you have a sudden car repair or something comes up and it's, $500. If you don't have that emergency fund, you're probably going into debt to cover it. But even having $1,000 saved can totally prevent that debt spiral.
So it's about starting small, building that habit, and then gradually increasing the amount as you go, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But beyond the practicalities, I imagine there's also a huge mental and emotional benefit to just having that financial cushion, right?
Huge. It's peace of mind.
Right.
Knowing that you can handle those unexpected curveballs life throws at you without completely derailing your entire financial picture.
It's like having that safety net. So true. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about sign number 3. This one really resonated with me. Goal setting GPS is broken.
Okay.
This source makes the point that saving without clear goals, it's like wandering aimlessly through a grocery store.
Oh, I've been there.
Right, you get to the checkout and you're like, why do I have 3 tubs of ice cream and no milk?
Exactly, yeah. And that's where the power of, setting SMART goals comes in. Have you heard of that? The SMART.
I love a good acronym, so tell me more.
Okay, so it stands for, and get ready, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay.
All important.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah.
So can you give us an example of what a SMART financial goal would actually look like, in the real world?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's say your goal is to buy a house in 5 years. A SMART goal would be to save a specific amount, let's say $30,000 for a down payment within that 5-year time frame. And you can break it down even further, like how much do you need to save each month to reach that $30,000 goal? So you're thinking about it regularly.
Makes perfect sense, right? It's like mapping out your route before you start driving instead of just hitting the gas and hoping for the best.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's cruise on over to sign number 4, which is all about seizing investment opportunities. I think a lot of people, they hear the word investing and they just get intimidated.
It can feel very like Wall Street,
Right, it's this big complicated thing that's only for rich people with fancy suits.
Right, exactly. When actually the core concept of investing, it's pretty simple. It's just putting your money to work for you.
Right.
So it can potentially grow faster than inflation can eat away at its value.
And I think the source really hits the nail on the head when it talks about how inflation can be like a silent wealth killer.
Totally. A lot of people, they think just keeping their money in a regular savings account is the safest option. But a lot of times, with interest rates being what they are, their purchasing power is actually like slowly shrinking over time.
It's like your money is just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, it's not even keeping up.
So where do you even begin, if you're new to investing? What are like just the very basic building blocks?
Well, you've got your stocks, which are basically like you're buying a tiny piece of ownership in a company. Right. You become a part owner. And then there are bonds, which are more like, it's kind of like lending money to the government or to a corporation.
Okay.
And then, of course, real estate.
Right.
A lot of people like real estate as an investment, but that often requires, more of a higher initial investment.
Right. It's like diversifying your wardrobe. You don't want to have like all your clothes from the same store. Right?
Exactly. Diversifying is like key to managing risk. So you want to spread your investments across different things, right? So stocks, bonds, real estate, maybe even some alternative investments like commodities or gold. So that if one area isn't doing so well, it doesn't completely tank your entire portfolio.
All right, you can have those backups, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about sign number 5, which is all about retirement planning. And it's easy to fall into that trap of I set up my 401k, I'm good. Right, I'm done.
Right, it's on autopilot.
Yeah, but this source, it really emphasizes that regularly reviewing and adjusting your plan, it's so crucial. So why is that so important?
Well, because life happens, right?
Yeah.
And life is full of surprises.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, those surprises have financial implications.
Right.
You might get a promotion. You might have a family. You might buy a house. You might have an unexpected medical expense. Who knows? But the point is, all of these life events can really impact, what you need for retirement.
Yeah, your needs change. Your goals might change, right?
Right, exactly. Plus, the market is constantly evolving, so your investment strategy needs to kind of evolve along with it.
So it's not like a set it and forget it kind of deal, right? You got to be in it.
No, you can't just assume that what you set up 5 years ago is still going to be the best approach, 5-10 years down the road.
Yeah.
Especially if you get closer to retirement, your risk tolerance might change.
Right, yeah.
And your portfolio should really reflect that.
Yeah, it's like taking your car in for a tune-up. You know what I mean? Every so often, you got to make sure everything's still running smoothly.
I love that analogy.
Speaking of staying on track, let's dive into sign number 6, expense tracking black hole.
Oh, yeah.
I think we've all been there, right? Where it's the end of the month rolls around and you're like, wait, where did all my money go?
The mystery.
It's like it just vanished into thin air.
Right. And it's usually all those small, kind of mindless purchases we make throughout the month, you know? That add up without us even realizing it. Like a coffee here, takeout there.
It's death by 1,000 lattes.
Yes, exactly. That's a good one.
So what's the antidote to this? Spending amnesia, right? How do we remember where our money is actually going?
Awareness, that's it. You really you need to track your spending, plain and simple. And the good news is technology can be our best friend when it comes to this. There's so many budgeting apps out there that make it super easy. It can connect to your bank account or your credit cards. It can automatically track everything, put all your expenses into categories, even give you little alerts when you're getting close to your budget limits.
It's like having a little personal finance assistant right in your pocket.
Exactly.
But what about those of us who are maybe a little bit more, old school? We prefer a more hands-on approach.
Sure. Yeah, well, there's the classic envelope system, the old but goodie. It's still surprisingly effective.
How does that work?
So basically, at the beginning of the month, you allocate cash to different spending categories, groceries, entertainment, dining out, whatever it is. You put that cash into separate envelopes. And once an envelope is empty, that's it. You got to wait until next month to replenish it.
I love that because it makes those spending decisions so much more tangible.
Yeah.
Right? When you're actually pulling the cash out of an envelope, it's
you feel it.
Yes, exactly.
It's a lot harder to mindlessly spend when you're doing that.
Totally. Okay. Let's move on to sign number 7, which is about making sure you have adequate insurance. And I know this is one of those topics that a lot of people just kind of ugh,
Yeah, it's not the most fun thing to think about.
It's not the sexiest topic, but it's important.
It's crucial. It's all about protecting yourself and the people you love from complete financial devastation if something unexpected happens. It's not exciting, but it's a really important part of having a solid financial plan.
It is. So, what are some of the just like the key types of insurance that people should at least like have on their radar?
Well, health insurance, of course,
Ah,
a big one, especially here in the U.S.
right.
Protects you from those potentially astronomical medical bills if you get sick or injured.
Yeah.
Life insurance. Another important one, especially if you have people who depend on your income, like kids, a spouse.
Yeah.
It provides a financial safety net for them if something were to happen to you. And then disability insurance,
Yeah.
which a lot of people don't even really think about.
Right.
But it can be a lifesaver if you become unable to work, due to an illness or an injury.
Right. Wow. It's a lot to consider.
It is, but it doesn't have to be totally overwhelming. Like, a good insurance agent can really help you navigate all the different options out there and figure out, like, what type of coverage makes sense for you, for your needs, and your budget.
Okay, that's good advice, so you don't have to do alone.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to sign number 8, which is all about riding the waves of market volatility. And I think this is something that trips a lot of people up, especially those who are newer to investing, because it's very easy to get caught up in the emotional roller coaster of it all, right?
Oh, yeah. It's easy to, panic when you see the market taking a nosedive.
Oh, totally.
Right? It's like natural human instinct.
Yes.
But what's important to remember is that these market fluctuations are totally normal.
Okay.
Like the stock market, it goes through cycles. There are ups and downs. It's like the tide going in and out, right? You just have to, kind of ride it out.
So how do you do that? How do you, not freak out and, make rash decisions based on, what's happening in the market, right this second,
Right. Well, that's the key, right? Is not to make those emotional decisions based on the short-term market movements.
Right.
Really, one of the best things you can do is just focus on your long-term investment goals.
Okay.
Zoom out, look at the big picture. Why did you invest in the first place? And trust that the market has a very long history of bouncing back from these downturns. Right.
It's you just got to weather the storm. Right. This too shall pass.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint, remember.
A marathon, right. Okay, let's move on to sign number 9. Savings not adding up. Ooh, I feel like we've all been there where you're putting in the work, you're diligently putting money aside every month.
You're doing all the right things.
Right, but it feels like you're barely making a dent.
Right, like you're running in place.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
Well, and that's where the magic of compound interest comes in, right? It's like a snowball effect, but for your money.
Right.
The earlier you start saving and investing, even small amounts, the more time that money has to potentially grow, exponentially.
So it's not just about how much you save, but when you start, right? Time is actually on your side in this case.
Big time, yeah. Even if you can only swing at $50 or $100 a month right now, just starting, getting into that habit and being consistent, that's key.
I love that. Small steps, big results.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to a topic that might be a little, I don't know, a little painful for some listeners. Taxes.
Everybody's favorite.
Whew. Sign number 10 is all about the importance of tax planning. And I'll be honest, this is one of those things I tend to put it off. It's not the most exciting part of personal finance, but...
It's not glamorous, but it's crucial.
Right, exactly. You got to do it.
And the thing is, a lot of people, they think about taxes once a year, right? When it's time to file.
Right, when it's too late.
Exactly. But being strategic about your taxes throughout the year can potentially save you a ton of money in the long run.
So what are some things that people can do throughout the year to be more proactive instead of just scrambling at the last minute?
Well, for starters, just familiarize yourself with some of the common tax deductions and credits that you might be eligible for. For example, if you're a homeowner, you can deduct the mortgage interest on your taxes. Or if you're self-employed, there's a whole slew of deductions that are specific to, running your own business.
Yeah. It's about knowing the rules of the game, right? And making sure you're taking advantage of all the opportunities to, legally reduce your tax burden.
Exactly. Work smarter, not harder, right?
Exactly. Okay, let's switch gears one last time and talk about sign number 11, big expenses sneaking up on you. And again, I think we can all relate to this one, whether it's, a down payment on a house, your kid's education, or even just a dream vacation you're saving up for. These big expenses, they can feel really overwhelming if you haven't, properly planned for them.
For sure, yeah. It's easy to just push those big expenses to the back of your mind and hope that they'll just magically work themselves out.
Right, but that never actually works, does it?
Never. The key is to really treat those big expenses not as surprises, but as financial goals.
Yeah.
Just like any other financial goal, you need a plan to actually achieve it. So start by figuring out, like, okay, how much money am I going to need for this thing, and when am I going to need it by?
Yeah.
And then break it down, like we were talking about earlier, into those smaller, more manageable savings goals.
It's about making it feel less daunting, right?
Exactly. And remember, even if you can only save a small amount each month, it's better than nothing, and it'll add up over time.
Small steps, forward momentum.
Always moving forward.
I love it. Okay, let's wrap things up with sign number 12. Investment portfolio looking a little one-dimensional. And, we talked about diversification earlier, but this sign really drives home that point of spreading your investments around, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And I like to think about it like building a house.
Right.
You wouldn't just use one type of material to build a house, would you? You want a mix of strong materials, right? You've got your wood, your concrete, your steel to create this really sturdy structure.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
And your investment portfolio is kind of the same idea. By diversifying, you're basically mitigating risk. So if one area of the market takes a hit, those other areas of your portfolio can kind of help soften the blow.
It's about having that strong foundation.
Exactly.
So that no matter what the market throws your way, you're prepared.
You got this.
I love it. Well, this has been a really fantastic and honestly really insightful deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from tackling debt and building that emergency fund to setting those smart goals and creating a diversified investment portfolio.
And the best part is, you don't have to do it all at once, right? Pick one or two things that really resonated with you. Start there and just watch as those small changes make a big difference over time.
It's all about progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the 12 signs your financial strategy needs adjusting. We hope you've gotten some really valuable insights today and some actionable steps you can take to really feel more in control of your finances.
Absolutely. And remember, you've got this.
Yes, you do. Thanks for listening, everybody.